Kendra Fox, Washoe County School District.
Nevada State High School.
John Barlow, Somerset Academy.
All right. Seems like we have 13 people attending the conference. Thank you very much for your time. We tried to finish it by 2 o'clock because some of us have other commitments too. And we're going to start with your question. As I said, if you have any question regarding the budget, just budget pages, just wait until Evelyn joins us. As you see, we sent the budget and the application in separately. But when you're sending your application, because it is in paper, please just make a copy of the budget and put it inside the application on section D. And the reason we said is because we had some glitches with putting it, and the link was not internally would work, externally wasn't working. But this was a way for us to make sure that you have access to both budget pages and application and RFA. Anyway, okay, let's just start with, if you have any questions, just start with that, and then we go from there on.
Hey, Homa, this is John Hawk, Nevada State High School. On the go-to meeting, it asked if this could be recorded. I am having trouble hearing you, so a couple of requests before we get started. Number one, could you slow down when you speak? Number two, can you record this meeting so we can replay it back in case number one is not possible?
The meeting is already recording, and it is on recording.
Hello, everyone.
Okay. As you see, this application, like last time, it has 3 components. It is for STEM, dual enrollment, and for AP. And all in detail, we explained the funding for these 3 components and what the funding should go for. And also, we provided you this time the opportunity to write a project narrative for each component. So are you hearing me? All of you put your phone on mute, and then unmute it when you want to speak, so you're not going to hear all these different feedbacks. Everyone there?
Yes, that sounds better.
Sounds better, yeah, because once everyone mutes, then we won't hear those feedbacks. Okay, so any question you have? Do you want me to go over anything? One of the things that I would like to mention that we would like you to, if possible, to partner with different organizations in order to sustain your program, because we are not sure if we are going to have this money next go around. So if you start having partnership with other organizations, you may be able to sustain the program that you're proposing. And the other thing is, like last year, the Nevada Learning Academy at Clark County School Districts is willing to provide online AP classes and help you with that. And I can get you more information if you are willing to or planning to use to do online AP classes. Any question about the application or any question about the budget page?
Homa, this is John Hawk, Nevada State High School. Can you give us some other examples besides Nevada Learning Academy that you would like us to look at partnering with for sustainability, please?
Well, in terms of the online, that's the only one that is in Nevada, but I can send you other...
Homa, this is John. I'm sorry to interrupt. I wasn't referring to just online. I was referring to in general as you're describing the programs for each one of the components.
Oh, you're talking about organizations to partner with?
Organizations, or what kind of partnerships that you're looking for?
Dave, do you
So,
want...
John, this is Dave Brankamp.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, John. So on the STEM side, because that's the area that I will look at, it would be a business partner. So let's say down there, if you did something, because I think we would all know the name of, like with Switch, or like up in Washoe County, because I believe I heard Kendra's name on there. You know, maybe they did something with the Aromatic Journeys, one of the outdoor education programs, somebody that you know has a good connection to STEM. It could be an engineering firm, you know, that they would be involved with. That would be one example. Does that help, at least in the STEM side?
Yes, that helps a lot with the STEM side. Homa, is there somebody there that can speak to the dual enrollment side?
Melissa, are you on the phone? I think Melissa is not on the phone. Is she?
I did not hear Melissa's name, so
Yeah.
you might have to get them a list. Ask Melissa. And you...
I can ask Melissa to send you the list, to send to everyone the list of the organization.
Homa, this is Wendy Hawk. In reviewing the application, you get scored on not just partnership, because the review and the rank on that is literally just your partnership with the colleges. And what you're asking for is different than that. You're asking for sustainability of funding with partnerships. So there's a disconnect between what you're getting assessed on and what you're asking us to document. So I'm confused as to what the priority is and what the ranking is going to be on that.
I will explain why it is not in the application. This came from the superintendent after we released the application. So that was the superintendent said you may mention that because he's concerned that we may not have this money next go around. So that's why it's not in the application, because we didn't have a conversation about it. We have put something in the application about partnering with the organization. It's not completely off the base, but after I released the application, Steve asked me, can you talk to your stakeholder and say this is something they should consider? But we have mentioned that in the application in terms of partnering with other organizations, nonprofit organizations.
Homa, I think Dave had a good example. Can you clarify exactly what it is that you mean with regards to these partnerships, and then what the superintendent meant, and then we could amend it and put it on the website? Does that seem reasonable? Then we can get forward with your discussion today, and I don't have to keep interrupting, and I do apologize to everybody on the phone.
That would be a good idea, and we will do that.
Can I have an idea of when you'd be able to do that for us? Within the next week or two? What's your timeline?
It would be next week. It won't be this week because I'm pretty booked this week. It would be next week.
Okay, so by the end of next week?
By Friday.
The 25th.
Okay, Friday of next.
The 25th.
25th. Sounds good. Thank you.
Friday the 25th?
Yes.
Any other concern or questions?
Hi, this is Brian Crosby, and I just want a little clarification. Under the goals, it says priority will be given to those applications that focus on developing skills among teachers in order to give students the highest quality education. But then later on, it says the following areas are the key focus areas for STEM development and may be funded under the STEM section of the grant. And then it describes things that students are involved in. Is it either one of those, or it seems like one says it's about developing skills in teachers, and then the other section says, you know, creation of a computer science course for grades 7 to 12 and so forth. I mean, there's a whole list.
Brian, this is Dave Brankamp.
Hi.
Hi, Brian. So the goal of that, from, again, discussing internally with the superintendent and at that point our deputy, was your focus with the teachers would be so they could do what's under the focused area. So if you were doing something in computer science, obviously we hope we have some teachers trained in that, but you may have to do some work around that as we've started looking at that computer science piece. If you went to, what's another one in there? Trying to find your page, but you know, you're working with something else in the STEM field that you would not only help get those teachers schooled up on it so that they could do the work with the students. Does that help?
Yeah, so in other words, if we did something in computer sciences and the teachers went through at least part of a course first so they've got some background and understand what's going on, and then we set up a course for the students to take, that's what you're talking about.
Correct. We look at, hopefully that we can get that sustainability built, yes.
So if the course only leads to students, I mean, they can go as far as they want, but if it doesn't end up in some kind of certification, is that okay, or does it have to end up in certification?
No, it'd be just professional development training to get them on that path, and it doesn't have to complete the certification. It'd be great, but you know that's not always doable. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ronnie.
Anything else?
Yeah, this is Wendy Hawk. I actually have two questions. In there, it does talk about the district priority ranking. Can you clarify what that means and what it is and where we get that?
Well, that means that, you know, if you're asking for all three components, the AP, you're having one narrative for AP, one for dual enrollment, and one for STEM, and we may not be able to about all of them. What is your priority? Which one has more priority for you? Is it STEM, is it AP, or is it dual enrollment?
Okay, so we're just ranking the priorities of which of the three categories of the grant we'd like to get first if we needed to?
Yes. Which one has a highest priority for you? You may get all three, but if you don't have enough money to disperse, which one do you like to get awarded first?
Okay, and the second question I have is, it does talk about the STEM and dual enrollment, and it says there's $5 million for that category, yet in January of 2015, there was set-aside money, and it doesn't dictate what that is that comes out of that money. So what is left for the schools for STEM and dual enrollment? Because the STEM Advisory Council was able to take money out of that, is what this grant here says. So how much money is there if there's not $5 million?
As far as I know, there is $5 million. We were told there is $5 million. I don't think there is.
You might have to wait till Evelyn's here, but I think that's what you and I were told. So.
That's what we were told, that there is $5 million. We haven't heard otherwise. We are going to look into what you said, but that's what, as far as Dave, Melissa, and I know, it's $5 million.
Okay, yeah, and that's just so you know, it's on the application just above Part D for the review process under Part A, STEM and dual enrollment. So that's where it says that there's set aside money out of that $5 million from the STEM Advisory Council. So I just didn't know if that was different.
What page are you talking about?
Page 6.
Do you want to look?
I'll look about here.
And Dave is looking for it to answer your question while we're waiting. Is any other question?
Yeah, Homa, this is John from Nevada State. What's the, who is the person that I would contact for the partnerships for dual enrollment?
As I said, because Melissa Scott in our southern office.
Okay. Homa, I have to ask the question for the general audience. Are you asking if there's any questions with the grant in general?
If by reviewing your grant and the RFA, do you have any questions or any part, like you were asking, if there is something that is not clear, just ask. Hopefully we can clarify that. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's going to be more, but I'll ask another question if nobody's going to take the airtime. A number of us were denied even looking at the application, and you know this very well and intimately because of our conversations after the grant was released and your review of the grant. Can you just give me an idea of what things are not permissible with the grant? Or is this a self-directed, a very itemized directed grant to say these are the only things that you can spend money on?
We try to work on things that you can spend money on, and I know as you said, you and I had a question, had a conversation about what is permissible, what is not. We think that we have put enough detail as what is permissible in this grant application. They do have anything to ask because I think they have put here, but we don't know what is. I mean, we know anything that the money should be spent by June 30th. Anything beyond June 30th is not permissible because of the way that this grant has been structured. And the money that is unexpended and every year it's not going to roll over. It's going to go back to the general fund. And so these are the two things that we know, that you have to spend it within that from July 1 to June 30th. And it cannot go, for instance, for furniture or stuff like it has to be related to expanding these three components. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so Homa, just reviewing that with what you said, I'm looking at some people were given staffing allocations or support, and some people were not, and I'm just not sure as to what is permissible about being able to pay for, like, for example, staffing. That was inconsistent with what was awarded between grants. So can you provide some clarification, like, for example, on that specific topic, since you're not being very clear about what is permissible and what's not?
No, well, I don't recall staffing. Do you have any specific example? First of all, I have to say I don't review the grants because I wrote the RFP. I don't review the grants. But what staff? I don't recall any staffing through this grant.
Yeah, some people probably on the phone were denied certain portions of the grant for being able to hire people, and that was denied. It was said it wasn't permissible, while other people were given recipients of being able to fund for certain aspects of personnel. So it's personnel funding, basically. Is that or is it not a permissible allocation?
I don't think personnel is a permissible allocation for this grant. And just a second, Evelyn walks in. Evelyn, we don't have any personnel on this.
Well, one of the questions, for example, is being able to provide extra support in the dual credit aspect, above and beyond dual credit. That's just the classes. So being able to have a person walking students through and supporting them in a college environment could be something that would be permissible, or having extra staff come in and train or do something even for STEM enrollment or STEM education. Yeah, those are just examples. If you're going to expand a program, it's really hard to expand programs, which is the nature of the grant, without extra staff.
Homa, this is John. Hey, I just had a question or a statement. Even in the budget expenditure summary, Object 100, it says salaries. Now, unless that's just a stock summary sheet that you provide, but it even includes salaries on that, which might be a little misleading.
The budget form is different. So this is Evelyn amount of each line item. This is Evelyn from our budget office. The budget summary is used for all the grants in the department, so it's very specific to a grant. So if this grant does not allow personnel and fringe benefits, the budget form will still have that. We can delete that. It's just a form that we use no matter what grant it is.
Right, I understand that. I'm just pointing that out just as a comment. And also, as soon as you came back on, I could hardly hear your explanation of that also.
Okay, your question was that under the budget document, there's salary in it. So what I was explaining was that this budget form is used for all the budgets in the department. It's that sometimes, depending what the grant application is, the grant application will explain to you what's allowable under that grant, and then once you submit your application and your budget, you will only use the line items that are allowable under that grant.
Okay, that's a problem though, because there's nothing in there about personnel not being funded for in this grant. And basically when this was asked, it was, hey, you have to meet the timeline for spending the money or the money gets kicked back. I just asked a specific question about personnel, knowing there was a conflict in who was awarded personnel funds last go around. And now we're told, no, that's not permissible. So, I mean, I am more than happy to go through all the items that are possible in the world to get clarification on that. So can we get clarification on what is permissible? Because what is allowable isn't in the grant, like you're saying. Like you cannot spend it on personnel.
Wendy, for AP grants, personnel is not permissible. It's very, I put that table there, it's very prescriptive, and there is no personnel over AP. And I haven't seen, Dave, you clarify, I haven't seen anything in 516 that this can be used for personnel. It has to go for the expansion of the dual enrollment and STEM. But I'm clear for AP that it's not for personnel.
So can we get a list?
Hey, Ebony, this is John Hawk, Nevada State High School. Are you still with us?
Evelyn? Yes, I'm still here.
Evelyn?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I'm sure you've looked at the grant, and I'm also priming the pump here a little bit. Can you tell us where it is in the grant of the items that are permissible?
The grant application was put in by the program individual, which is Homa, and Dave. So they'll be the ones that can answer you. As far as what's in the application there and what's allowable is not my part. And Dave, have you seen anything in the 516 that says it's because I know it's not permissible for AP.
Homa, this is John again. What is the 516?
515. It's our budget number. That's a bill number that is.
That's the bill number.
Bill number that has all of these in it.
Oh, the project number, the grant?
No,
it's
the bill.
John,
Senate
bill 515. That was what issued the funding.
Senate bill.
Do you want to?
It's Senate Bill 515.
I think you have that section.
Is what made the award.
Yeah, I know, but there was just a small section in there. There was nothing specific in that bill that says you can or cannot spend money on this, that, or the other thing. I know exactly the bill. I don't need to have it in front of me. And I know the section.
John, a couple of things. On the STEM side, it'd be fine as long as they know it's non-sustainable. If that money's not there, it's what we call someone working on soft money. So if after a year, let's say, using your facility, you hired me as a person, I may only be employed for a year. So when you advertise it, that would be you to be very clear that the funding to it is only for a year. After that, if there's no more funding after 17 biennium, I guess I'd be out of a job if I was working for you. But I mean, it's just so that people are very clear that it's not an FTE that's been bought. Now you have to hold it's under soft money.
Okay, I get that.
That would fit for our STEM side.
And for AP, there is no administrative, no. It's only $600,000, and there is no personnel issued under that.
Okay. So go back to the question that started this all. Can you show me where it is in the grant? What is allowable? Like,
for AP?
no, for the whole, I'm sorry, for the dual credit.
For the dual credit, we just explained what the money can be spent on. And, you know, if you need to, as Dave said, you need to hire somebody to do some training, you can do it, but with this in mind that this money would be done by June 30th, 2017.
Okay, let me try one more time. Can you tell me where that is in the page number on the grant RFP that you posted on the website?
Hey, John, I believe that's on page 7.
Thank you.
Dual enrollment C on page 7.
Wendy, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
This is Dave. I was looking at your pages on page 8. So I will be in touch with Brian Mitchell at the governor's office, who leads the STEM advisory, because we still do not have a fund from them as to what they would even possibly request. In fact, that's the next meeting I'm going to. So I will ask him if he could get us, and then we'll get that posted. That would be what would potentially come off. It's a May. It would need to go in front of Dr. Canavero to verify as well.
So we really don't know if there's really $5 million that are going to be available?
As we sit right now, there is, because we've received nothing from the STEM Advisory Council, and I sit with them.
Okay.
That discussion has not come up, but if it doesn't come up before the April, then there would be no fund for them to draw from. We'll issue the $5 million to the dual and the STEM.
Okay, and I think John Barlow, was that you who said page 7 for what can be spent?
That's correct, Wendy. It is on page 7.
I see the criteria. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
Well,
it's funding on.
It says funding under this proposal may be used for the following purposes, and it lists them out.
You're on the RFP, right?
Actually, I'm on the application, the request application. Yeah, well, it's RFA, that's what I've got, so. It's on page 7. It's when I went to the website and printed out.
Bullets at the bottom of page 7.
And also your of AP programs is on page 6 and leads over into page 7, the top of it, and then it's followed by your dual enrollment. Yeah. Hey, Homa, can I ask a question again on the amount of money that's allocated to STEM? Because on the application it has dual credit and STEM combined. What is the amount for STEM versus dual credit?
Well, it has not. We have. I mean, the SB 515 just says $5,000 for STEM and dual enrollment. It doesn't say how to divide it.
Okay, and you guys, once you allocate it, they'll determine if it fits within that budget?
Yeah, within the project narrative that you're sending them based on your with the merit of your application is to be awarded. Whereas for AP, it's pretty much, you know, spelled out. But for dual enrollment and STEM is just $5 million. And David stepped out; he's going to come. But I'm pretty sure it is. There is no set aside for say this much is for dual enrollment or this much is for $5 million for both.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Homa, this question is directed through you to Ebony. When can the funds begin to be encumbered, and then when must they actually reconcile with the encumbrance? And I can give you specific examples. I'm thinking more of the beginning and the end of the fiscal year. But if I was to encumber some funds June 15th of 2017, is the grant still allow for me to reconcile those funds that have been encumbered June 15th into the month of July and the month of August?
Yes. This is Evelyn. Your grant ends June 30th. Any expenditures that incur prior to the date are allowable. After June 30th, you cannot have any expenses under that grant. And of course, you have after June 30th to close the year until the middle of August. So you are hoping that whatever you might have had an expense in the middle of June, that by the middle of August, you already have received your invoices and you're able to submit a request for reimbursement for that. So that we leave it up to each individual to decide when the cutoff date is, because sometimes if you don't have it by June 30th and you need to close the year and you don't have that, it delays our process and we cannot close our year. So we give it up to each individual to have a cutoff date when you'll be allowed to have any expenditures prior to the end of the grant date. Does that make sense?
So let's go. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So if you were to go to June 15th, encumber the funds, but you don't get the invoice until July 15th, you can still pay out on the grant.
Yeah.
But you have 90 days after the June 30th date to reconcile your encumbrances.
Yes, you do, but I want to correct you. You don't have 90 days. 90 days is for the federal grant. This is a state grant, so you have from June 30th to August 11th to submit.
August.
Yes.
Okay, so Homa,
yes.
Homa, last year when the grant was denied for Nevada State High School,
To be reviewed.
to even be reviewed, we were going to encumber the funds in June and then have those reconciled in July, not even into August. Do you see that as, based on what Ebony just said, do you see that that is permissible within the grant this year?
That we had that discussion with Evelyn, yeah. But I think another thing was the facility. I think the reviewer didn't go for opening another facility. They said this is not, the money is not for that purpose.
Yeah, I get that, but there was a second reason, and that was for the summer school classes. And we're trying to appease you as much as we can. We're hungry to get this grant. I think that it fits right into our wheelhouse. And the fact of the matter is, we just want to work with you guys. What's been done is done, but we want to make sure that we're doing what you want us to do.
And to clarify that, Homa, it says on this grant, just to be clear, which was the same on the other grant, was only incomplete grants would not be reviewed. Is that, I mean, that's what it says in this grant, that anybody who meets the qualification of meeting all components of the grant still get reviewed?
Well, it is the policy, based on what the deputy superintendent has told me, it's the policy of the department that when the grants are incomplete, we are not going to review them. And that's why we were trying to be as clear as possible this time, that if then there is technical review for the completeness of the grant. If it is not complete, it's not going to be reviewed.
So there was a lot of static. I don't know if somebody's still not on mute, so I could hardly hear you. But what I heard you say was, right now, if it's not complete, that it won't be reviewed. But if it is complete, it will be reviewed. Yeah, somebody's got their phone on, not on mute, and I can't hear. There's a lot of static when you talk, Homa.
Yeah, please put your phones on the mute and please. So, yes, you're correct, Andy.
Okay, because what you just said with, well, they didn't like what we were spending the money on is why they didn't review us, which was contrary to the grant purpose, and I just want to be sure that wouldn't be the case. It was said if there was clarification between what people were doing, we would work with them, and that never happened. So I just want to make sure that happens this year.
Sure. Correct. If it is incomplete, it's not going to be reviewed. If it is complete, it will be reviewed.
Okay.
Hey, Homa, and did we lose the audience of the larger district? It blows my mind that they don't have questions about this stuff.
I don't know. Maybe they're clear. We have 19 people on the phone. And we have, I guess, yeah, at the beginning, we have Clark County, we have Washoe County. So please, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask the question. And I know there are some questions on the chat. Yeah, and we will. Okay. You already addressed them. Okay, thank you. Okay, sure. Yeah, the questions about dual enrollment and STEM, if you have any questions, just send them to me. I will forward it to appropriate individuals. And if there is about AP, I will be able to answer you AP questions.
Homa, this is John, and Wendy finally found what John Barlow said on page 7, and maybe we could get Ebony. I don't even know, you're the person that writes the RFP. Maybe we should be talking to the person that's going to review this stuff. I guess that probably wouldn't be logical, would it? What's the funding? What exact funding are you looking for? Because it sounds like the grant's open to interpretation, but then again, it sounds like you're steering it down the road of it can only be spent on certain things. But I'm looking at what John Barlow said, and I don't get a clear interpretation of what it is to spend the money on.
So dual enrollment on page 7?
Yeah.
Correct. It says funding may be used on the following: a plan for dual enrollment. We're funding a plan?
There are some schools who don't have any dual enrollment. So we are talking. It's not just about. We are talking about rural districts who do not have any AP program or any dual enrollment program. So we want them to give us a plan, what they're doing, or tell us, what their plan is for increasing the dual enrollment.
And then student support services is pretty much left to interpretation as well. And I like the clarification that Dave gave earlier about just be clear if you're only hiring for somebody for 1 year.
Yeah, you can, as long as you're clear and the people know that they have job for a limited time, we're fine.
And I know that the whole grant is for expansion.
Yes.
Expanding programs. So I'm still a little confused why helping out with the facility wouldn't be important for that. You need to have a space for students. So that's what would be, like computers for students? Is that not a permissible aspect for computers to be able to do their online work?
No, it is permissible as long as you can justify what the computer is used and how it is used. It's permissible.
Okay.
So under that circumstance, wouldn't a facility be permissible if you could justify how it was going to expand the program and have sustainability? Well, I'm trying to use your justification to generalize to other things.
Well, this is what do you want to say something? This is what the reviewer said, that this money is, I mean, opening a facility is going to be probably very expensive to open the facility. But as I said, I did not review I'm not reviewing any of these grants. The reviewer said that they don't think facility is suitable for this money.
So that's just a concern about, so who's reviewing this and where's the due process?
Okay, this is Evelyn. On either state grant or federal, and it's specific in the law that you can use these funds for starting a facility from scratch, then it's allowable. I'll tell you right now that none of the federal or state grants that we have in our department allow this extent.
Okay, and that's perfect, which would have been really nice to have somebody like we were told, and this is my concern, and this is where we're trying to get clarification on this. We asked in a meeting just like this, what is permissible? And we were told in the meeting, all you need to do is submit it, we'll review it, we will work with you on adjusting what your budgets are. And instead, one person, from what I hear, reviewed it and said, nope, we don't like this, and wouldn't even review the application to see how it was justified.
No, I didn't say one person. There is a team. There was a team, and my grant and Evelyn was in that room. Probably that's what was said. that it's not permissible under the federal or state law, a state grant, unless it is specifically said you can use that money for facility. So it wasn't one person.
Okay, but when we asked for clarification in this meeting, last time the grant came around, which we're asking for now, we were told, don't worry about it, put it down, we can adjust your budget after. I'm just trying to get it so nobody it runs into a roadblock, especially us again.
Okay, this is.
We're not even reviewed because somebody says, oh, well, no, that doesn't count.
Okay, this is Evelyn. Okay, so you will submit your application and your budget. If, like Homa mentioned, all the requirements are there, your application will be reviewed, whatever is in it. As the reviewer panel are reviewing your applications, if there's items in there that we know are not allowable, those will be removed from your budget. Doesn't mean that your budget will not be approved. Maybe that just one line or more will be removed from your budget. It doesn't mean that you can have it there, but if it's not allowable in this grant, you will not be funded for that specific item.
And I really appreciate the clarification. Just understand that did not happen. Our grant wasn't even reviewed because somebody didn't like a line item. That's the problem. I'm just trying to get clarification, and when I'm trying to get clarification, I'm still getting vague answers.
Okay, next. Is there any other questions?
Homa, this is John again. Can Evelyn, or Ebony, I'm sorry, can you send me what is and what's not allowable in a state grant? You're referencing something out there, but I don't know what it is.
I will research that and send whatever we can send out that information to all the individuals that will request that.
Hate to ask a timeline on this, but can you get that by the 25th when Homa's going to be able to get her stuff to us?
Yes.
Homa, this is Melissa Scott. I'm just now joining. I apologize for the delay.
Hi, thanks for joining us. Melissa, there are some questions about dual enrollment.
Okay.
One was that I mentioned that Steve has asked, if possible, in order to sustain the program in case we don't get this money next year, just to be able to partner with other organizations. And John needs the list of those organizations, and I said, you and I can work together and have a list of organizations that they can partner with by Friday the 25th. To send it to them.
For the most part, it's going to be our typically dual credits done with our community colleges. UNR and UNLV might be a possibility in Nevada State. Typically, the community colleges are more involved with dual enrollment.
Melissa, can you speak a little bit louder? You get caught and we can't hear you.
Sure, I apologize. Is this better?
It's better.
Okay, I turned my volume up. Typically, dual credit is with our 4 community colleges. There might be a possibility with Nevada State, UNLV, and UNR, but typically dual credit is at the community college level. They have their Jump Start programs, which is typically for like Math 98, English, sometimes political science, / government. So, it's up to the, districts would make those partnerships with those community colleges.
Okay.
In terms of allowable uses of funds, each state grant is slightly different depending on the funding source and the either regulations or NRS that's related to it. But Homa, we can work on developing such a list if we want for this grant.
This is Tom Bean, County. So Melissa, are you suggesting that the districts don't write to the dual enrollment, but that's up to the colleges and they would partner with the districts?
Oh, no. A district, because the way this legislation was written and the grant is assigned to K-12, you definitely can write to dual enrollment, and you would just indicate in your grant that you have talked to whichever, in your case it would be CSN probably, and talk about how you're going to use the funds to develop a dual enrollment program.
Okay, thank you. And Homa, you know, oftentimes in these grants there have some spending guidelines. You know, as a large district, should we write to the full amount, or are some kind of guidelines on how much we could write to?
Well, each individual, each district should know what their needs are. We can't tell you how much you can request on your application and how much you cannot. But as the reviewers review the application, they'll decide if they'll fund you 100% or just a percentage. We cannot tell you what to request on an application.
Right, and Tom, if you remember, if all of you who've looked at the RFPs, that's one of the reasons we have the project sheets in there, so that you can divide your thoughts, your projects. For example, if you wanted a lot of things you wanted to do in that STEM priority, then you may want to divide that between a couple of different projects, and then there's a line for the district to rank those priorities. So maybe you have a middle school STEM initiative, but then you also have a separate high school STEM initiative, and you may have a third type of STEM activity that you want to do. Each of those could be a different project, and if you rank those, so the middle school is your #1 priority, this different thing was your #2, and the high school was your #3 priority, then as funding, you know, maybe you may or may not be able to get all 3 projects funded, but maybe at least the reviewers will know that your top priority would be that middle school project in my example. So that's why having an individual project sheet with those budgets is going to be key to help the reviewer decide.
Okay, thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
This is Brandon Swain at Douglas County. Hello?
Yes. Who was that again? Sorry.
Brandon Swain, Douglas County.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We have a question about community of practice. We are trying to get the Nevada Academic Content Standards in Science in place in the high schools, and we want to develop opportunities for teachers to get together to create units that are aligned with the standards, but at the same time have aspects of STEM. Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about when you're using the term community of practice?
So it has that real world, and they have the application to what's out there. That would be right on target. The goal, as we know, is that when these guys see something that's out there, it could be something unusual, but they've seen something similar, and they could use an application to it. That would be that community of practice, whether it's in the engineering fields or mathematics or arts. That would make sense, and then you could also probably partner with some of your folks down there in Minden-Gardnerville as well.
Right, and we are trying to move towards more and more opportunities for folks to communicate electronically. And we have a bit of infrastructure that way, and so we just want to make sure that they don't have to be face-to-face necessarily to attain these goals.
Correct. Yeah, as long as, just make sure that's very clear for the reviewers, that that's how they would be brought in.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
You bet, sir.
Hi, Tammy Freeman at TMTC. I have a question for Melissa.
Yes, hi, Tammy.
Hi. So you mentioned before that the school district would have to prioritize if, let's say, they were going to go for STEM and they had different areas they wanted to do that. Are they also going to need to prioritize amongst STEM, AP, and dual enrollment?
That's a good question. I would say yes on dual enrollment and STEM. AP's got its own kind of its own bucket of funds. Homa, do you want to add to that?
AP and dual and STEM are separate.
Yeah, they are separate because, as you said, there are three project narratives separately. They can, have those write the project narrative for each component and give it separately, but within the same application.
But I think, Tammy, yes, I think you'd have to prioritize within your whole grant.
Yeah, I did talk about it before that, are you talking about the priority ranking?
Well, right. So here at Team CEC, we're not going to be applying for the STEM or the AP, but as we're working with the school district, are they going to need to be thinking about what they want to do for STEM and AP and whether then that dual enrollment priority, how that ranks with the other things they want to do? Does that, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, the district decides what they want. I mean, and work with you and decide which one is the priority for them.
Okay, so we'll have to wait and see what they want to do then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Homa, this is John Barlow.
What is it called under the registration?
Right, yes.
Yes, my question for you is that we have some middle schools that would like to apply for the STEM. Now, again, if all they have to do is just simply address the STEM portion of this grant. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And if I have a high school that just wants to focus on the AP, they don't have to do anything with STEM or dual and credit. Just simply they need to submit their recommendations or the application to address the expansion of AP programs.
Correct.
All right, good. Thank you.
If you have any questions about STEM, just ask it because Dave has another meeting and he has to leave.
If you think of them after, guys, you could always send them to Homa. She'll track me down.
Yeah, if there is anything you didn't get a chance to ask, just send me questions and I will forward them to Dave and to Melissa for dual enrollment.
Hey, Homa, before we get off the line, can we review, this is John from Nevada State High School, would you kindly review what the deliverables are on your end that you're going to post on the website by the 25th?
You said that talk about the partnership, what you mean by that partnership and sustainability, and Evelyn is going to provide you the requirement for the state and permissible and not permissible for grants, so state grants. That's all I wrote down. Is there anything else?
Homa, this is John again. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I also want to thank you a lot for slowing down. It was very easy to understand.
You're very welcome. All right, if there is no questions, we're going to say goodbye and good luck with to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.